We talk a lot about getting older in terms of physical health. We track blood pressure, keep an eye on joint pain, review retirement accounts, and plan for all the ways life slows down. But there is a massive, deeply personal side of aging that almost nobody wants to look directly in the eye. What actually happens to emotional connection, intimacy, and sex as the years stack up? If you bring up sex and aging in polite conversation, people usually get uncomfortable. They crack a cheap joke, change the subject, or act as though, after a certain decade, your human need for physical closeness and emotional warmth just magically turns off. But it does not turn off. And pretending that it does creates a quiet, heavy isolation that millions of people are carrying around every single day without a safe place to put it down. When you look at what older adults, and older men in particular, face as the years go on, loneliness is rarely just about living in a quiet house or having a smaller circle of friends. It is often about the gradual, creeping disappearance of touch. It is about no longer feeling desired, no longer having someone to reach out to in the middle of the night, and feeling like society has quietly decided you are past your prime for romantic connection. When you pair the natural grief of life changes, lost partners, or changing bodies with a lifelong habit of telling men to suppress their emotional needs, you end up with a silent epidemic. We need to break the silence on this topic because ignoring it is actively harming people's health, happiness, and quality of life. To understand why this hits so hard, you have to look at what physical touch and intimacy actually do for us as human beings. Sex and physical affection are not just about physical pleasure or biological drives. Throughout our entire lives, touch is the primary language through which we register reassurance, security, validation, and belonging. A simple hug, a hand on the shoulder, or physical intimacy releases neurochemicals that calm the nervous system and quiet the mind. When that part of life dries up, whether due to the loss of a partner, a divorce, or health changes, the body notices, the mind notices. But instead of feeling empowered to seek support or adapt, many men pull back entirely out of embarrassment, fear, or a sense of shame. They internalize a rigid idea that if intimacy does not look or function exactly the way it did when they were 25 years old, then it shouldn't exist at all. That mindset creates a vicious cycle. The physical changes that come with age, changes in hormone levels, energy, or medication side effects, are completely normal biological processes. Yet, because we do not talk about them openly, men often interpret these changes as a personal failure. Rather than risking awkwardness, rejection, or disappointment, they pull away from relationships altogether. They stop putting themselves out there, stop reaching out, and gradually retreat into a shell. That physical and emotional withdrawal quickly turns into profound, chronic isolation. What makes this even more complex is how society treats aging and desirability. We live in a culture obsessed with youth as the only standard for romance and attraction. When older adults express a desire for sex or new romance, they are often met with subtle ridicule or condescension. That messaging is toxic. It makes people feel invisible. It tells them that their desire for closeness is somehow improper, which only reinforces the impulse to keep quiet and endure the loneliness in silence. So how do we break out of this cycle? The first step is completely reframing what intimacy actually means as we age. Intimacy in your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond does not have to look like a copy of your youth, nor should it. It is not a performance, and it is certainly not a competition. Real intimacy in later life is built on vulnerability, genuine communication, deep companionship, and the shared understanding that the human desire to be held, seen, and valued has no expiration date. Physical closeness can take many forms: emotional openness, deep conversations, simple touch, affection, and relearning what feels good and comforting without the pressure of expectations. If you are listening to this and recognizing that quiet space in your own life, or if you have watched someone you care about drift into that kind of isolation, know this: wanting connection at this stage of life is not a weakness, and it is certainly nothing to feel ashamed of. It is simply part of being human. We have to give ourselves and each other permission to talk about these needs out in the open. We need to start having the honest conversations about aging, sex, and loneliness that no one else is having, because nobody should have to navigate the later chapters of life feeling invisible or untouched. If this conversation resonated with you, take a moment to hit the like button and subscribe here to Aged and Confused. We're building a space where we can talk about the real, unfiltered side of getting older without the taboo. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts or your own experience. Reading your stories helps others realize they aren't going through this alone. Thank you for spending time with me today, and I'll see you in the next video.